Hello everybody, in this video we are going to continue talking about systems of equations by graphing. But this time we're going to talk about some word problems, how to set them up, how to represent them as graphs, and how to interpret the solution as many, one, or no solution. But I am going to be really straightforward about these. Most of the time when you're working a word problem, you're not going to run into your special solutions like the no or the many. It's usually going to be the one, and then we have to identify what that one means in respect to the word problem. So let's go ahead and look at this one together so you can read it along with me. This one says that Roberto has 8 coins that are all dimes and nickels. They are worth 50 cents. The system n plus d is equal to 8, and we have another equation, n plus 2d is equal to 10, represents the situation. Graph the system to determine how many of each coins Roberto has. So one of the things that I'm going to point out is when you're working a word problem, you're going to read it twice. You're going to read it the first time because you want to pull out all the information that's important to you. But the second time you read it is so you can answer the actual question. So this one right here, I not only highlighted it, but I'm going to remind you that when you go back after you solve it, you have to answer the question. And so this one says, graph the system to determine. We're trying to determine how many of each coins he has. So he has dimes and nickels, so we need to specifically say, this is how many dimes he has, this is how many nickels he has, based on our answer. So they have given us n and d as our variables, but it's easier to default back to something that we're already comfortable with. So I'm going to ask you to identify dimes and nickels, but change the variables that they're using into x and y, because we know how to use x and y. We know how to graph x and y. So let's go ahead, and I'm going to put a little x right here on top of dimes and a little y up here on top of nickels. So over here to the side, I have given you an x and y here. Let's go ahead and write out what our x represents and what our y represents. Alright, so I went ahead and wrote in that x represents the number of dimes, and even though they gave us a variable, that is we're switching out the x and the d. Alright, our y is going to be the number of nickels, and so because they told us to use the n, just know that the y and the n are going to be switched out. And they have given us the equations. We don't have to set them up ourselves. They are already given to us. We just need to be able to solve them and graph them and identify the point of intersection. So let's take n plus d is equal to 8, and let's rewrite it in x and y. So right here, n is our y. So we're going to say y plus x is equal to 8. That is not solved for y. We're going to have to solve that for y. So let's go ahead and do that right now. The only thing that's on the same side as the y is the x. I'm going to give it a placeholder 1. And so from here, we're just going to subtract 1x from both sides. So we have y1 is equal to 8 minus 1x. And then from here, we know that our y-intercept is 8. Our slope is -1. But remember, our slope needs to be a fraction, so we can do rise over run. So let's go ahead and put the 1 underneath it. Our reverse slope is going to be 1 over -1. All right. Let's do the same thing with the second equation that they gave us. So be careful with your n and your d because we're changing them out for x and y. So we already said that the y represents the n. So we're going to say y plus 2x is equal to 10. Our y is not by itself. The only thing we need to get rid of is the x. So we're going to subtract it from both sides. We're going to get y. I'm going to go ahead and label it y2. 10 minus 2x. All right, our y-intercept is 10. Our slope is -2. Go ahead and put a 1 underneath it so it could be a fraction. And then we'll write our reverse slope, which would be 2 over negative 1. All right, so I went ahead and color-coded my lines already. Now that I know that I have y1 and y2, we can take our coordinate plane that's over here to the left. Let's go ahead and label. Notice that we have our x and y here, so we can go ahead and label our axis. So our x represents the number of dimes, and our y represents the number of nickels. Right. So now that we have our axes labeled, we can go ahead and graph this out. So let's start with the first one. Our y-intercept is 8, so 8 is right here. This is still our y, even though we don't have negative numbers on this coordinate plane, because most of the time in our word problems we're not dealing with negatives. We can't have negative nickels, we can't have negative dimes. So from here, our slope tells us to go down 1 and over to the right. So down 1, right. And you're going to see and feel that pattern and start creating that line. So I'm going to take it all the way here, and then we'll connect those dots here in a little bit. So let's do it right now. Okay. And I just get into the habit of doing that. I should really just go from this point to this point, because it won't go past that. All right, so we have this line right here, so let's do the second one. This is line 1, which starts at 10, right here. And this one is going to go down 2 and over 1. So let's go down 2 over 1, down 2 over 1. So this one's already here, so I'm going to circle it. Down 2 over 1, and then continue that until I get there. All right, I'm going to go ahead and connect the x and the y-intercept. I really shouldn't be going past like I did on the first one. So from here. And so this is line 2. And so we can see that our two lines do intersect, and they intersect specifically at this point right here. So I'm going to go ahead and write out 2, 6. Remember, we got to do the x and then the y. So 2, 6. So from here, we know what x represents. X represents the number of dimes. So it looks like he has 2 dimes. And then right here we have 6, which is our y, is represented by nickels. So we get to say that Roberto has 2 dimes and 6 nickels. And so not only did we graph it and identify the point of intersection, but we were able to go back to the question and answer it. Determine how many of each coin he has. And that is this right here. All right, let's look at our last word problem. This one we are going to have to, actually no, they gave us our equations, so we're just basically identifying what we're going to consider x and y and doing the same thing. All right, so let's go ahead and do the same thing with the second word problem. So we're talking about Sandeep, and he has a bakery where he has to order peanuts and raisins. So he orders a total of 8 pounds. The peanuts cost $1 per pound, while raisins cost $2 per pound, and he spent a total of $10. They have given us the equations that they want us to use to represent the situation. And remember what they're asking us to do. They want us to graph the system to determine how many pounds of peanuts and raisins he has ordered. So I'm going to go back and highlight that part, because it is important that we don't get too comfortable just creating the graph and identifying the point. We have to make sure to tie it back into the actual word problem and answer the question. So with that being said, we have x and y here. So let's go ahead and determine what is going to be the x and what is going to be our y. So let's go back to the original. Let's go ahead and call peanuts x, raisins y. Now remember, they're using P and R, so we're just going to go back and flip those. So here we're going to write what the x and y represent, and let's go ahead and write the first equation so we can go ahead and solve it for y. All right, so as you can see, I put number of pounds of peanuts, which is P for X, the number of pound of raisins, which is R for Y. And then our first equation was written P plus R equals 8, so I wrote it as X plus Y equals 8. The only thing we need to do here to solve for Y is remove the X. And so this one looks like our standard form equations that we're used to dealing with. So let's just take the 1, subtract it from both sides. Don't forget to carry over the X. Bring down your Y equals 8 minus 1x. So from here we can identify that the y-intercept is 8. Our slope is negative 1 over 1, because remember we need a fraction. And then the reverse slope would be 1 over negative 1. All right, let's go ahead and do the second equation. So notice that they have given us P plus 2R equals 10. So because P is now X, we're going to say X plus 2Y is equal to 10. So this one, once again, is in standard form, so we can solve it. I'm going to give it a placeholder 1, so we can then subtract 1x from both sides. And so this gives us 2y is equal to 10 minus 1x. We need to get rid of the 2. We're going to do that by dividing by a positive 2. We have y is equal to 5. This will not reduce, so we're going to leave it as a negative 1 over 2x. And I'm going to just use the side area right here. We're going to say our y-intercept is 5. Our slope is negative 1 over 2. And then the reverse would be 1 over negative 2. All right, so from here, we do have our y1, and we do have our y2. And we do have a graph where we can graph our lines and find the point of intersection. All right, so I went ahead and labeled our graph with our X and Y axis here. So we have pounds of peanuts at the bottom and pounds of raisins on the Y. I also graphed the line for Y1. And this time I remembered not to extend my line, so it doesn't keep on going. It goes from here to here. So this is y1. And then we're going to do the same thing with y2. So our starting point is 5, right here. And we're going to go down 1 and over 2. So here's 1 point, second point. And then notice that this one right here is the one that they do have in common because it's already on the first line. It's now on the second line. But I'm going to keep on going to finish off this line. And then here. All right, so it's very faint, but you can kind of see how those dots are lining up. So I'm going to go from one to the other. This is our y2. And so I can see the point of intersection is going to be 6, 2. So I'm going to write it over here. 6, 2 is our x, y values for the point of intersection. It's where the two lines intersect each other. It's the point that they have in common. And remember what we labeled x and y. So if we go back to our original statements, we said x represents the number of pounds of peanuts and y represents the number of raisins in pounds. So if we're going to answer that question and determine how many of each he ordered, then we get to say, well, he ordered 6 pounds of peanuts and 2 pounds of raisins. And so this is the actual answer. So make sure you're always going back to those word problems to specifically answer the question. All right, I'm going to go back and color code these. I hope that by walking through these two examples, not only do you understand how to create those lines and find that point of intersection, but also how to answer that question appropriately. So I hope that helped. I'll see you guys in the next videos.